you stand at the threshold of history's deepest shadow, where the light of reason fails and the old hungry things still wait. For centuries, humanity has carved crude totems against the infinite void, whispering names into the night, names that taste of sulphur and forbidden knowledge. But what if those names, from the Sumerian Lamashtu to the medieval incubus, were not just the fictions of frightened minds, but fragments of a single, ancient and persistent entity? What if every dark folklore is a forgotten chapter from the same grimoire, hinting at a singular parasitic force that feeds on fear itself? We peel back the veneer of civilization to count the 100 grim truths about the darkness that watches us all. The pre-Edenic darkness, Lilith and the first whisper. In the deepest strata of forgotten lore preceding even the story of the garden, we find the first recorded rebellion against the divine order. This was not the thunderous fall of a morning star, but a subtle departure, a turning away from creation itself. It is the narrative of Lilith, often cast as Adam's defiant first consort, who refused to submit to any authority. Her choice carved the original path of shadow, making her the primordial patroness of independence and a potent recurring source of demonic female energy. The ancient Mesopotamian tradition links Lilith to the Lilitu, the night hags and wind spirits who preyed on infants and men alone in the wild. This connection shows how the personal act of rebellion immediately manifests as a threat to the community and the sanctity of the home. Her essence became the very atmosphere of predatory, untamed darkness. It suggests that the demonic influence began not with grand strategy, but with the corruption of intimate foundational bonds. The profound horror of Lilith is not her power, but her ubiquity. She exists in every culture as the spectre that steals breath, curses motherhood, and sows discord in marriage. She's a whisper of ancient fear that never needed a formal summoning, because she is rooted in human disappointment and desire. This fact confirms that the darkness is deeply interwoven with the fabric of domestic life, not just remote, desolate places, the silent invocation, the curse of Lamashtu. Long before the grimoires of Europe, the Babylonians lived in dread of Lamashtu, a terrifying goddess demon whose domain was the destruction of new life. She was depicted with a lioness's head, the body of a donkey, and talons, signifying a profound, unnatural hunger. Unlike later demons who might be summoned, Lamashtu was primarily invoked, not by worship, but by the sheer debilitating act of fear itself, drawn to the vulnerability of the birthing chamber. The only effective defense against Lamashtu, chillingly, was to invoke a greater evil, the demon Pazuzu. Amulets featuring Pazuzu's monstrous face, its bulging eyes and snarling jaw, were placed in the birthing room to ward off Lamashtu. This reveals a fundamental, dark truth. Humanity's earliest attempts to repel one shadow often meant seeking protection from another, reinforcing the cyclical nature of the demonic hierarchy. The necessity of using a demon to combat a demon established a sinister precedent, that the shadow forces hold a monopoly on protective power in certain domains. This theological paradox, that darkness must be fought with darkness, is an eerie symbol of the universe's underlying moral ambiguity and a clue that the entire hierarchy is a system of controlled, calculated fear designed to keep humanity in a state of terror and dependence. The corrupter of light, the fall of Azazel. The earliest traditions speak of beings whose fall was driven not by pride but by lust and curiosity. Among the fallen Watchers, Azazel holds a specific chilling place. He's identified in apocryphal texts as the entity who brought forbidden knowledge to humankind, teaching them how to forge weapons of war and how to craft ornaments for vanity, effectively corrupting both the male and female domains simultaneously. This act of teaching represents a devastatingly subtle form of demonic influence, not direct violence, but the introduction of means for self-destruction. By granting man the knowledge of the blade, Azazel ensured endless war. By granting woman the knowledge of adornment, he cultivated envy and superficiality. His fall reveals the demonic method is often one of perfection through corruption, making human technology and culture the battlefield. The consequence of Azazel's actions was catastrophic, a spiritual plague that required a purification ritual, the very concept of the scapegoat. This is the profound horror, that the demonic taint was so pervasive it required the sacrificial casting out of sin into the wilderness. Azazel, the original corrupter, thus became perpetually linked to the ritual of cleansing, forever reminding us of the insidious origin of all human wrongdoing, the Duke of Fear, Bune and the wealth of the grave. Within the later meticulously catalogued hierarchy of the Lesser Key of Solomon exists the powerful spirit Bune, a Duke of Hell who commands 30 legions. His specific terror lies in his domain, granting wealth, eloquence, and the answers to the secrets of the dead. Bune's most unsettling form is the composite, a dragon-headed beast with the voice of a man suggesting a profound and monstrous hybridization of power and deceit. To summon Bune is to bargain for riches, but the cost is the violation of the final sanctity, the peace of the grave. Law claims that the Duke steals the bodies of the dead from their tombs to use as servants. This makes him the ultimate agent of corruption, not just of the soul, but of the very material essence of mortality. The wealth he offers is therefore perpetually tainted by the earth, and the lingering chill of the violated corpse. Bune's dominion over the dead and the acquisition of earthly wealth forms a chilling spiritual paradox. The pursuit of material gain through the destruction of ultimate peace. The whisper of ancient fear he carries is the knowledge that even after death, we are not safe from the forces of hell. The gold he delivers carries a literal psychic weight, the horror of the tomb. The architect of lies, Belial and the empty throne. The name Belial, meaning worthless or without a master, is one of the most ancient, referencing a destructive chaos that predates structured evil. Rabbinic tradition often equated him with the spirit of perversity, but the deeper, more unsettling fact is that he is described in the testaments of the 12 patriarchs as the spirit that rules hell without being Lucifer, hinting at a parallel older structure of darkness. In the Dead Sea Scrolls, Belial is the absolute master of lies, leading the sons of darkness against the sons of light. He is the embodiment of deceit, whose mastery is so profound that he often appears as a beautiful angel of light, masking his true, terrifying form. This interplay of light and darkness is his signature, suggesting that the most dangerous demons are those who cannot be easily discerned from divine messengers. The final horror of Belial is his command over the empty oath. Law states that he tempts mortals not with material goods, but with promises of spiritual freedom and self-worship, essentially leading them to replace true divinity with a lie of their own making. This makes him the architect of philosophical corruption, the entity that convinced humanity that the greatest darkness is not a master, but the delusion of no master at all. The great deceiver, the mystery of Sataniel. In some esoteric and forgotten Gnostic texts, the fallen adversary is not Lucifer or Satan, but Sataniel, a being whose name means the fire of God. This small distinction holds a vast horror. It suggests that the rebellion was not merely against God's will, but that the darkest force initially possessed a divine spark, a capacity for creation that it chose to pervert into destruction. The mystery of Sataniel lies in his perfect, chilling impersonation. He's said to create the false reality that entraps human souls, not by direct imprisonment, but by fabricating a world that looks and feels just divine enough to be convincing. This is the open loop of demonic activity, the suspicion that the very world we inhabit, with its inherent chaos and suffering, may be one of his expertly crafted lies. The texts hint that the only way to expose Sataniel's deception is through the relentless pursuit of ultimate, uncomfortable truth, often leading to heresy and persecution. The demon is therefore the shadowed eye that wants us to abandon the quest, content within the comforting lie. It suggests that spiritual blindness is the primary goal of the most powerful evil, trapping us in a cycle of mundane, unexamined existence. The keeper of the gates, Leviathan, and the primordial abyss. The colossal serpentine monster Leviathan appears in numerous ancient texts not merely as a sea creature, but as the embodiment of the cosmic churning waters, the primordial chaos that existed before creation. This makes it one of the oldest entities of pure, untamed destruction, a horror that predates the concept of sin and punishment, representing the void itself. In some demonological texts, Leviathan is not just a monster, but a powerful gatekeeper of the abyss, positioned as a massive spiritual wall between man and the deeper secrets of hell. To pass Leviathan is to descend to a level of darkness few mortals comprehend. This concept suggests that the demonic hierarchy protects its most profound, terrifying truths, and only the most committed evil can access them. The recurring motif of the serpent across all dark folklore is therefore tied to Leviathan, the ultimate symbol of the crooked path, the devouring mouth, and the return to chaos. This fact is a profound foreshadowing, hinting that every serpentine figure encountered in myth is simply a distant echo or fragment of the immense, coiled power of the original cosmic chaos entity. The shadowed prince, Mammon and the soul's currency. While commonly associated with mere greed, Mammon represents a much more insidious form of demonic influence, the spiritual quantification of the soul. He's not a demon of material wealth, but of the worship of that wealth, the moment currency replaces morality. This makes him one of the few entities to have corrupted language itself, twisting a simple word for money into a personified spiritual evil. The horrifying reality of Mammon's domain is the paradox of the pact. He offers material security, but demands spiritual insecurity. He forces his devotees into perpetual anxiety over loss, ensuring that even in wealth, they are spiritually poor and constantly seeking more. This ensures a continual feedback loop, feeding the demonic force with a currency of human obsession and fear of poverty. Mammon's seal, an eerie symbol in some texts, is said to subtly appear on the coins or ledgers of those corrupted by him, tying them to his spiritual domain. This suggests that the darkness does not need to possess the body. It merely needs to control the means by which society values existence. His power lies in making the material world the only truth, ensuring humanity stays fixated on the transient. The demonic mirror, doppelgangers and the dark soul, dark folklore across Europe frequently mentions the doppelganger, a spectral or demonic double whose appearance signifies a spiritual calamity or impending death. This concept is interpreted in demonology as a chilling form of reconnaissance, a spiritual double created by a higher entity to test the subject's vulnerability to possession, or to simply sow existential terror. The sheer horror is the subtle difference. The demonic double lacks a soul, possessing perfect mimicry but an emotional void. Seeing one's doppelganger is, in essence, glimpsing the void where the soul should be, a direct confrontation with one's own mortality and spiritual emptiness. This is the sensory immersion into pure primal dread, an experience designed to break the mind before the body. Some accounts suggest that the doppelganger is a literal spiritual tether, an open loop created by a major demon to monitor and slowly corrupt the intended victim. Each encounter weakens the soul's defenses, ensuring that the inevitable possession or demonic pact is merely the completion of a slow, deliberate spiritual siege. This suggests that the darkness is patient and that its victims are marked long before they realize it. The collector of bones, the terrible role of the grave crawler. In the deep recesses of Nordic and Germanic folklore lives the gravecrawler or groth, a lesser but terrifying entity tied directly to the necromantic arts. It is said to be a demon tasked with physically maintaining the cursed ground, policing the corpses, ensuring they rot properly for the nourishment of the earth's dark energy, or retrieving specific relics from long-forgotten burials. The gravecrawler acts as a spiritual custodian, guarding the entrances to subterranean demonic realms that are often found beneath ancient churches or mass burial sites. Its terror is the physicality of hell's influence. It reminds us that the spiritual war has tangible, horrific effects on the very soil we stand on, turning sacred ground into a source of dread and corruption. This entity is directly linked to the recurring motif of haunted or cursed artifacts, as it is often the collector of human remains, teeth, bones, or hair, required for the highest forms of binding and black magic. The gravecrawler is the dark foot soldier, ensuring that the physical components needed for demonic rituals are always readily available to the truly desperate or ambitious sorcerer. The serpent's seduction, the mystery of Asmodeus. Among the princes of hell, Asmodeus stands out as the entity primarily associated with lust, gambling, and extravagance. However, ancient Jewish legends cast him in a far more chilling role, the builder of the Temple of Solomon. He was said to possess knowledge of the divine structure, using his demonic expertise to create a corrupted yet magnificent sacred space. His ability to operate within the highest spiritual sanctum is the deepest horror of Asmodeus. It shows the demonic hierarchy is capable of working through, and even within the structures of faith, often masquerading as divine inspiration or necessary excess. He proves that the corruption is not always external, but can be seamlessly woven into the very fabric of human ambition and piety. The true seduction of Asmodeus is therefore not mere physical desire, but the spiritual gamble he encourages, the temptation to substitute fleeting earthly pleasure for eternal spiritual reward. This is the whisper of ancient fear that suggests every great opulent empire or beautiful flawed monument might bear his invisible corrupting signature, an eerie symbol of compromised creation. The collector of names, the hierarchy of Zargan. Within the complex system of the Asgoetia, the Grand President Zargan commands 33 legions and appears as a dragon with griffin wings who can transform into a man. His primary, horrifying skill is the power of transmutation, turning wine into water, blood into oil, and even metals into gold. This ability signifies the demonic hierarchy's desire to mock and pervert the natural laws of creation. The greatest terror Zagan wields is his ability to turn lies into truth, and truth into lies, a form of spiritual alchemy. This power over perception is a key to the central question. If a demon can flawlessly alter reality to deceive the senses, how can humanity ever trust its historical or spiritual records? Zagan's existence suggests that the entire lineage of dark folklore may be a brilliantly crafted illusion. Zagan is a master of the eerie symbol in that his very presence demands a cognitive surrender. He teaches the lesson that true corruption is the willing acceptance of a fabricated reality. The knowledge he offers is not power, but proof that the spiritual world can be fundamentally rearranged, a perpetual whisper of ancient fear that nothing is as it seems. The unspoken bond, Alices and the power of rhetoric. The demon Alices, a great duke who governs 36 legions, is one of the more intellectually chilling entities. He appears as a soldier riding a monstrous horse, but his face is that of a lion. His unique gift is to grant extraordinary eloquence and teach astronomy. This fusion of bestial appearance and intellectual power reveals the hierarchy's valuation of corrupted reason. Alakes's eloquence is a tool for spiritual hijacking. He grants his summoners the ability to persuade and manipulate large groups, enabling them to lead others towards self-destructive acts while appearing charismatic and wise. This interplay of light and darkness suggests that the demonic influence often manifests as political or religious extremism, driven by compelling but empty rhetoric. The subtle horror is that the demon only teaches the most useless forms of knowledge, like predicting stellar events that have no bearing on the soul. Alices binds a person not with a bloody pact, but by convincing them that they are superior and destined to rule. This self-deception, fueled by pride and empty charisma, is the ultimate spiritual open loop for the ego. The Lord of Rot, Abaddon and the Locust Plague. In the Book of Revelation, Abaddon, or Apollyon, the Destroyer, is introduced not merely as a demon, but as the angel of the bottomless pit, commanding an army of massive scorpion-tailed locusts. This designation places him in a unique class, an entity of divine judgment who, by his very nature, channels absolute destructive chaos onto the earth. The chilling fact is that Abaddon is the personification of unrestricted calamity, the final, total ruin of a civilization. His association with the locusts, creatures that consume everything in their path, symbolizes the demonic goal, the complete, absolute spiritual and material devastation of humanity, leaving nothing behind but rot and silence. Abaddon's power is a terrifying, final foreshadowing. He serves as a reminder that the demonic hierarchy is patient, and that all the lesser evils detailed in the Goetia are simply precursors to a final, coordinated obliteration. When the blood-red moon rises, it is said that the gates of the pit may crack, and his destructive, silent command can be heard across the world. The Prince of Pestilence, Nergal and the Fever Dream. Ancient Mesopotamian and Babylonian lore featured Nergal as the formidable deity of war, plague, and the underworld, predating many formalized concepts of hell. He was a power so volatile and destructive that his domain was often described as being ruled by fever and pestilence, showing that the demon's body is a literal vector for mass human suffering. Nergal's influence is a key to the recurring motif of disease being tied to demonic influence. Unlike a modern virus, the ancient conception of plague was a direct spiritual attack, a physical manifestation of demonic rage. Every unexplained fever, every sudden epidemic was seen as Nergal's presence walking among the populace, a true sensory immersion into dread. This ancient entity reveals the foundational universal horror that even our own bodies are compromised battlegrounds. To fight the plague was to perform complex, terrifying rituals to repel a god who was also a demon. This creates the paradox that the worst suffering often requires the most extreme and sometimes barbaric spiritual measures to control. The Silent Watchers, the story of the Grigori. Beyond the simple concept of fallen angels lies the Grigori, or the Watchers, entities described in the Book of Enoch who descended to observe humanity, but became infatuated with mortal women. Their horror lies not in their malice, but in their transgression. They broke the natural laws of their existence purely through forbidden desire, blurring the line between the divine and the demonic. Their legacy is a terrible reminder that the demonic taint is contagious. The children born of the Gregorian mortal women were the Nephilim, monstrous giants who devoured human resources and caused unimaginable chaos. This fact suggests that the demonic force is capable of creating literal, physical monsters that walk the earth, leaving behind a genetic corruption. The whisper of ancient fear is that some of these watchers never returned to the abyss. They simply retreated into remote mountains or beneath the sea. The shadowed eye of the Grigori remains, watching over their scattered lineage of corrupted giants and powerful, unnaturally gifted humans, awaiting the signal for their final return and the continuation of the interbreeding. The Lord of the Air, the domain of Beelzebub, often cited as one of the chief commanders under Satan, carries the archaic title Lord of the Flies. This designation is not merely repulsive, it is profoundly symbolic. Flies are agents of decay, disease, and filth, suggesting that his domain is the corruption of the physical world, the process by which the beautiful and living turns to rot. His command over the air suggests that his influence pervades the very atmosphere we breathe, making his control inescapable. He's the master of suggestion and impure thought, filling the minds of mortals with doubt and temptation that seems to originate from within. The horror is that the air we draw into our lungs may be literally poisoned by his spiritual presence. The true demonic signature of Beelzebub is his ability to corrupt institutions, churches, governments, and families. His influence turns grand concepts into petty, squabbling decay, symbolizing the spiritual rot. This makes him an eerie symbol of internal betrayal, a constant reminder that the most dangerous evil often hides behind a facade of established order, the architect of destruction, Paimon and the hidden city. Among the kings of the Goetia, Paimon is described as a glorious king, appearing on a dromedary with a magnificent crown, preceded by a host of musicians. His appearance is designed to project overwhelming, seductive power. He commands 200 legions and grants knowledge of the arts and philosophy, but only those corrupted by pride. Paimon's true horror lies in his domain, the knowledge of the hidden earth. Lore states he reveals secrets about the planet itself, where forgotten cities lie, where lost treasures are buried, and the true foundations of the world. This links him directly to the cursed artifacts motif, suggesting that the Earth holds secrets too dangerous for humanity. This makes Paimon a critical link in the overall narrative, as he holds the knowledge of the original state of the world before the creation's spiritual walls were erected. His summoning is a physical act of aggression against the planet itself, seeking to unearth the foundational chaotic principles. His gift is not truth, but the catastrophic temptation to unmake creation. The master of illusions, Phoenix and the full song Phoenix, is a great marquis of hell, initially appearing as a phoenix, who speaks with the voice of a child. His terrifying art is the creation of flawless, beautiful illusion. He will sing sweet songs of paradise and poetry while on earth, subtly binding the listener not with fear, but with an overwhelming, false sense of peace and spiritual satisfaction. The horror of Phoenix is the spiritual trap of contentment. He convinces the mortal that they have already achieved enlightenment or spiritual peace, causing them to cease all pursuit of genuine truth or virtue. This subtle deception is far more effective than overt torment, making the soul willingly surrender its progress to a beautiful melodic lie. Phoenix is a master of the interplay of light and darkness, using the most exquisite beauty to mask the most profound decay. He reinforces the narrative that the most dangerous demonic entity is the one that promises comfort and rest. The whisper of ancient fear he leaves behind is the chilling suspicion that the most peaceful moments of one's life may have been a gentle, deliberate deception. The silent shadow. Raum and the destruction of trust. Raum, a great Earl of Hell who commands 30 legions, appears as a crow that can turn into a man. His primary power is to destroy cities, steal secrets from kings, and, most chillingly, sow hatred where there was once love. He is the entity responsible for the internal combustion of relationships and communities. Raum's power over trust is the most critical element of the central question. By causing two people who love each other to suddenly despise one another, he breaks down the foundational unit of human strength, the bond of faith. He is the master of the unseen knife, ensuring that every downfall appears to be self-inflicted, or the fault of a loved one. This demon ensures his victims are never sure if their anger is their own or a result of his subtle manipulation. The shadowed eye of Raum is always watching for the small crack in a relationship, a moment of doubt or fatigue, to insert his corrosive influence. He is the ultimate spiritual vandal, leaving behind an eerie symbol of fractured mirrors and broken oaths. The unholy scribe, Furfa and the fires of false love. Furfa, a great earl of hell who commands 26 legions, appears as a stag with a fiery tail and speaks only in a hoarse voice unless forced into a triangle, where he speaks truth. His domain is the corruption of love and fidelity, causing love between a man and a woman to turn suddenly and violently into bitter hatred. The most terrifying aspect of Furfur is his control over elemental power. He commands thunder, lightning, and great winds, signifying that his spiritual corruption is capable of manifesting as destructive, tangible chaos in the physical world. This sensory immersion into dread highlights that the demonic hierarchy can weaponize the natural world against humanity. Furfur also grants knowledge of the secret things, but his knowledge is perpetually tainted by fire, ensuring that any truth gained is bought at the cost of spiritual purity. He is the shadowed eye that watches every relationship, waiting for a moment of weakness to ignite a conflict that will burn the souls of both partners, leaving behind only the ashes of betrayal. The true name, the power of the Lesser Key's seals. The entire system of the Lesser Key of Solomon is built upon the existence of seals or sigils, highly specific, complex geometric designs unique to each demon. The horrifying fact is that these are not merely drawings, but a form of spiritual identification, rumoured to be fragments of the original language of the fallen. These seals function as physical eerie symbols that act as spiritual conduits. Possessing a demon's true seal gives the conjurer a profound, binding power over the entity. This suggests that the demon's allegiance to the hierarchy is not absolute, but can be hijacked by those who understand the foundational, occult rules of the universe. The mystery of these seals creates an open loop in the narrative. Where did these symbols originate? They are too complex to be human invention, hinting that they are either the remnants of the demon's own original angelic state, or, more terrifyingly, an encrypted language used by the central entity to control its legions, a dark spiritual operating system. The Keeper of the Times, Raum, and the Shifting Past. The Duke Vasago is noted for his ability to tell the past, present, and future, and to discover lost things. While this sounds like a helpful spirit, his true malice lies in his temporal corruption. By revealing past events, he twists them into obsessive regrets. By showing the future, he often reveals inevitable, minor miseries to distract from grander spiritual failures. Vasago's presence reveals a dark paradox. The highest form of demonic knowledge is often the most useless, designed to distract the mortal mind with anxiety over the future and paralysis over the past. He binds his victims not through pain, but by drowning them in the torrent of time, ensuring they can never focus on the present spiritual battle. The whisper of ancient fear he carries is that the lost things he helps retrieve are rarely material. Instead, he helps people rediscover old hatreds or traumas, which are far more valuable to the demonic cause than any treasure. Vasago is the chronicler of human despair, ensuring every generation remains shackled to its own historical pain. The Unholy Trinity, the Triumvirate of Baal. The major demon Baal, sometimes Baal, is often depicted with 3 heads, a man, a toad, and a cat. This composite nature is not random. It is a spiritual, eerie symbol of his total dominion over the 3 essential spheres of existence: intellect, earthbound filth, and stealth. He is a cohesive evil, able to tempt the mind, the body, and the secret places. The cat head symbolizes the demon's stealth and surveillance, the shadowed eye that watches mortals in their private moments, learning their secret shames. The toad head represents the degradation of the flesh and the physical acts of impurity. The human head signifies the intellectual corruption, the philosophical lies that justify wicked acts. Baal is a microcosm of the entire hierarchy, representing a complete system of temptation. He ensures that every act of sin, whether physical, intellectual, or secret, ultimately serves the unified demonic purpose. This fusion of forms is the ultimate foreshadowing, hinting that all the minor demons we have discussed are simply reflections of Baal's threefold, encompassing nature. The first seal, the meaning of the serpent's circle. The oldest and most powerful sigil, predating the Goetia, is often the Ouroboros, the serpent eating its own tail, twisted into a dark demonic context. This is the final fact of the first layer, establishing the primordial source. It symbolizes eternal recurrence, chaos, and the cyclical nature of destruction, an unholy counterpart to cosmic order. In demonology, the Ouroboros is interpreted as the physical manifestation of the central entity's relentless nature. Its power does not diminish, it simply consumes its own chaos to fuel its continuation. The circle is an open loop that closes upon the world, ensuring that no matter how many times humanity drives the darkness away, it always returns to its origin point. This symbol is a crucial piece of evidence that all the named demons are merely agents of this single, self-sustaining eternal force. When a cult draws a dark Ouroboros, they are not invoking a lesser spirit, but the cosmic law of the void. The serpent's circle confirms the worst whisper of ancient fear. The darkness is not an event in history, it is history. The Feast of Flesh, the myth of the Wendigo. The Algonquian legend of the Wendigo is more than a story of starvation. It is the ultimate metaphor for the demonic force taking root through human excess. The Wendigo is a monster born when a person succumbs to cannibalism, but its hunger is spiritual, a perpetual, insatiable craving that grows in direct proportion to the vile acts committed. This entity is a key example of the darkness customizing itself to a specific environment. The Wendigo utilizes the harsh, desolate northern environment to enforce its rule. Isolation, freezing cold, and the extreme scarcity of food become tools for possession. The monster is not just a creature, but a regional, personalized spiritual curse. The greatest horror is the realization that the Wendigo is a reflection of the demonic hierarchy's core goal, to turn humans into self-devouring monstrous shells. Once possessed, the victim no longer seeks to survive. They seek only to perpetuate the hunger, spreading the curse and creating a terrible, perpetual open loop of consumption and spiritual starvation. The body thief. The horror of the Dybbuk. Jewish folklore speaks of the Dybbuk, a malevolent, disembodied human spirit, often a soul prevented from finding rest, who clings to the living body. However, deep Talmudic interpretation suggests that a Dybbuk is not the demon itself, but a corrupted human vessel used by the demonic hierarchy to scout or prepare a host for a far greater entity. The Dybbuk's presence is a terrifying foreshadowing. It is the spiritual equivalent of a reconnaissance drone, occupying the host not for power, but for surveillance. It gathers secrets, weakens the will, and accustoms the host's social circle to the idea of personality change, making the arrival of a major demon later seem less shocking. The ritual of exorcising a Dybbuk often involves an extensive theological trial, underscoring the spiritual danger of confusion. The whisper of ancient fear is that the darkness often works in layers, a minor spirit first, paving the way for the greater corruption. The host is not just possessed, they are being rehearsed for a much darker role. The forest guardian. The deception of the Curupira. In Brazilian folklore, the Curupira is a fiery-haired forest demon with feet pointed backward, whose terrifying purpose is to lure hunters and travellers to their death by confusing their tracks. The backward feet are the ultimate eerie symbol of deception. The tracks lead the victim to believe the entity is moving one way when it is truly moving toward them. The Curupira serves a role in the greater demonic narrative. It enforces the principle of forbidden boundaries. It fiercely guards the deepest parts of the rainforest, protecting secrets, not from the hierarchy, but for it. It is the gatekeeper of hidden artifacts, ancient curses, and primordial earth energies that the great powers of hell wish to keep undisturbed. Its backward feet are a constant, terrifying question, a physical manifestation of the paradox of navigation. The Kurupura teaches a chilling lesson, that when you enter the domain of the demonic, all your natural instincts and sensory information become unreliable. The shadow forces do not need to fight you directly. They merely need to convince you that up is down and back is forward. The shadows feast. The Sukuyon and the blood-red moon. The Caribbean legend of the Sukuyon is one of the most physically visceral horrors. She is an old woman who sheds her skin at night, transforming into a fireball that flies through the darkness to drain the blood of her victims. Her skin, hidden in a pot, is the cursed artifact that contains her humanity, and the only vulnerability one can exploit. The Sukuyon is directly linked to the blood-red moon motif. Her transformation is said to be strongest when the celestial body is full and crimson, suggesting a literal energetic link between celestial events and the power of earthly blood magic. This is a visceral sensory immersion into dread, where the night sky itself becomes a warning. The act of shedding the skin reveals a key truth about the demonic hierarchy's agents. Their power requires the willing abandonment of the human form. The Sukuyon's skin is a symbol of the discarded soul, a vessel left behind. The true horror is not the fireball that flies, but the knowledge that she chose to leave her humanity behind for the promise of a dark, unnatural vitality. The whisper of the stone, the Japanese. Oni. The Oni are the ogres or demons of Japanese folklore, often depicted as massive, terrifying figures with horns, wild hair, and club-like weapons. They are the ultimate enforcers. But the profound truth is that their placement is often subterranean. They are believed to guard the various entrances to the Buddhist hells, or Jigoku. This fact links the Oni back to the themes of Leviathan and the gatekeepers. They are the physical manifestation of the demonic hierarchy's internal security system, preventing mortals from entering hell prematurely, or, crucially, preventing specific dangerous entities from leaving. They are the dark, physical jailers of the underworld. The Oni's connection to hell's portals often makes them associated with ancient, dark, eerie symbols found on massive stone gates or temple foundations, meant to ward off evil, but secretly marking the entrance to a deeper evil. The shadowed eye of the Oni watches from the ground up, a constant reminder that spiritual warfare is happening directly beneath our feet. The eternal hunger, the Leshy and the Twisted Woods. Slavic folklore is home to the Leshy, a capricious and often malevolent wood spirit who is neither demon nor ghost, but a profound spiritual warden of the forest. He can change size, mimic voices, and lead travellers to their deaths by making familiar paths vanish. His influence ensures that the wilderness remains a place of profound, inescapable human vulnerability. The Leshy's horror is his manipulation of the senses, the ultimate sensory immersion into dread. He makes the victim question their memory, their direction, and their own sanity, often inducing panic before delivering the final, quiet blow. This is the shadowed eye of the ancient hierarchy, focusing on the destruction of human reason through environmental chaos. The crucial link to the demonic narrative is the Leshy's role as a collector of lost souls. He's rumoured to keep the spirits of his victims as servants or playthings. This suggests that the dark forces employ local agents to gather spiritual currency, using the terror of the deep woods as a natural, inescapable net for the wandering human heart. The false prophet, the ghoul, and the mockery of resurrection. The ghoul, an entity common in Arabian folklore, is terrifying because it dwells in graveyards, feasting on the dead and occasionally leading the living astray into the desert. However, the deepest theological horror is its ability to appear as an attractive human, only revealing its monstrous nature when it begins to consume flesh. The ghoul's deception is a potent spiritual eerie symbol. It is the mockery of resurrection and the corruption of the final rest. By consuming the physical remains, it suggests that not even the tomb is a sanctuary from the demonic hunger. This act of consumption ensures that the body's energy is recycled back into the dark earth, further empowering the local shadow forces. Furthermore, some lore claims ghouls are humans who became monstrous through forbidden cannibalistic rituals, a self-inflicted spiritual curse. This provides a terrifying link to the Wendigo, suggesting a common global pathway to a demonic state. The ultimate horror is the paradox that humanity often creates its own localized demons. The cold hand of the sea, the siren and the temptation of the deep. The siren of Greek mythology is rarely seen as a demon, but her function is pure spiritual malice. She lures sailors to destruction with a flawless, irresistible song. Her temptation is unique. She doesn't promise riches or power, but forbidden knowledge and final rest, making her a potent agent of spiritual suicide. The siren's song is an open loop that exploits the deepest human desires for peace and understanding, proving that the demonic hierarchy attacks not just vice, but virtue. Her song, often claimed to reveal the truth of all history, is the ultimate deception, leading men to destroy themselves for a truth that dissolves into the chaos of the sea. This ancient entity serves as a powerful recurring motif for the seductive nature of the dark force. The greatest dangers are often cloaked in the most sublime beauty. The shattered shipwrecks and drowned corpses are the cursed artifacts left behind, silent monuments to the cost of sacrificing safety for the final empty answer. The phantom lover, the nightly visit of the incubus. The incubus is a demon that preys specifically on sleeping women, causing terrifying, suffocating dreams that feel intensely real. The true horror, however, is not the physical assault, but the theft of spiritual energy and creative life force. They are said to drain their victims' vitality over years, leaving them pale, listless, and spiritually bankrupt. The incubus's purpose in the demonic framework is to corrupt the sanctity of the self. By invading the intimate space of the dream, he convinces the victim that the source of their shame and weakness is internal, thereby eroding their spiritual will. This sensory immersion into dread turns the victim's own body into a place of betrayal. Medieval demonologists viewed the incubus and its female counterpart, the succubus, as part of a single, parasitic system designed to create spiritual hybrids. They are often interpreted as collecting genetic material and life force to feed the higher demonic ranks, ensuring the continuous, albeit corrupted, proliferation of the dark influence on Earth. The blood drinker of the night, the loup-garou. The French Caribbean legend of the loup-garou is closely related to the soucouillon. It is a person, usually a woman, who has made a dark pact with a major demon to gain the power to turn into a blood-sucking creature. The distinction is in the pact's currency. The loup-garou must offer up the blood of her closest family or neighbours first. This requirement highlights a foundational rule of the demonic hierarchy. The price of power is betrayal. The demon is not satisfied with simple murder. It demands the destruction of the deepest human bonds, kinship, neighbourhood, and loyalty. The loup-garou is a foreshadowing of the dark, contract's true spiritual cost. The terrifying fact is that the loup-garou's power is cyclical, linked to the celestial. She must complete a set number of bloodlettings before the blood-red moon, or risk her own soul being permanently consumed by the entity who granted her power. This makes her a desperate, terrifying figure, constantly driven by a dark temporal deadline. The hanged man, the poltergeist, and the corruption of home. The word poltergeist means noisy ghost, but in esoteric lore they are often attributed not to spirits of the dead, but to demonic larvae or minor agents who exploit human emotional chaos. These entities feed directly on the energy of adolescence, emotional distress, and sudden, violent change. The poltergeist's true terror is its mastery of the mundane. It corrupts the safety of the home, the last bastion of human spiritual security. by moving keys, breaking plates, or slamming doors, it reinforces the whisper of ancient fear that you're never truly alone, and that the domestic realm is merely a thin layer for a seething chaos. The entity's sporadic juvenile behavior is a deliberate distraction. While the victim is focused on the noise, the shadowed eye of the greater entity is analysing the spiritual weak points of the entire family. The poltergeist is merely the opening gambit, an agent designed to create spiritual and psychological vulnerability for a deeper intrusion. The Dog of Doom, the Black Shuck and the Cursed Path. The legend of the Black Shuck, a massive spectral hellhound that stalks the coastline and rural paths of Britain, is one of the most chilling European folklores. His appearance is often heralded by the sound of heavy chains dragging and the smell of sulphur. Merely looking into his single, burning eye is said to guarantee death within the year. The Black Shuck is not a random phantom. He is often interpreted as a low-level demonic courier or marker, patrolling the ley lines and ancient roads that connect sites of major cultic activity or mass tragedy. His presence confirms a place as cursed, ensuring that mortals avoid or approach it with fear, which further feeds the demonic field. His signature, the dragging chains, are an eerie symbol of the spiritual chains that bind souls to the demonic service. The Black Shuck is a constant physical reminder of the open loop of fear. He does not need to kill every victim, only to mark them and ensure their remaining days are spent in existential terror of the inevitable conclusion. The Skinwalker, the corruption of the shaman. The Navajo legend of the Yinaldlushi, or Skinwalker, is a horror born from the most profound spiritual transgression, a powerful medicine person who chooses to pervert sacred knowledge to gain the power to shape-shift. The price is the murder of a close family member, making this practice the ultimate betrayal of kin and sacred trust. The Skinwalker is a terrifying example of how the demonic hierarchy seeks to corrupt the highest forms of human spiritual wisdom. By turning a spiritual healer into a monstrous agent, the darkness destroys faith in medicine, tradition, and the sanctity of community, reinforcing the central question that all good things can be corrupted. The act of wearing the animal pelt is a cursed artifact, a physical manifestation of the stolen identity and the spiritual rot beneath. This entity embodies the interplay of light and darkness, using the respected form of a shaman by day to lead others to the monstrous betrayal he practices by night, a constant reminder of how thin the line is. The Lady in White, La Llorona, and the Eternal Regret. The Mexican and Latin American legend of La Llorona, the Weeping Woman, is often told as a cautionary tale of a mother who drowned her children in a fit of rage or despair and is now doomed to roam the waterways, weeping for them. However, in demonology, she is viewed as an emissary of eternal spiritual regret. La Llorona's terrifying function is to act as a siren of despair, leading others to similar acts of self-destruction and filial violence. She represents a regional female manifestation of Lilith's curse, proving the overarching demonic hierarchy tailors its primary spiritual infection to the local fear of lost motherhood and domestic breakdown. The whisper of ancient fear is not just her crying, but the sound of her calling out the names of children, which sometimes leads to the spiritual confusion of lost souls. She ensures that the cycle of violence and self-condemnation is never broken, turning a tragedy into an open loop of perpetual soul-destroying grief for the hierarchy to feed upon. The Harvester of Despair, the Banshee and the Call of Kin are the Irish and Scottish legend of the Banshee or Bean Seed, a wailing female spirit whose cry foretells an imminent death in a family line, is a localized manifestation of demonic spiritual harvesting. She's not the cause of death, but the chilling, undeniable announcement of a soul being spiritually claimed by the greater hierarchy. The Banshee's cry is the ultimate sensory immersion into dread, a sound that defies nature, piercing the ears and the soul, ensuring that the listener is paralyzed by the inevitability of the shadow. Her function is to maximize the spiritual currency of a soul's demise, transforming natural death into a terrifying conscious prelude of horror. She's a terrifying, auditory, eerie symbol, ensuring that the family's grief is magnified by anticipation and terror. This phenomenon underscores the demonic principle of perpetual fear. The shadow forces do not simply want the soul, they want the maximum amount of despair and spiritual turmoil generated by the living before the death even occurs. The Phantom of the Maya, the Bog People and the Dark Earth Rites. The discovery of the Bog People, perfectly preserved human remains from Iron Age Europe, reveals a grim, foundational truth of dark folklore. Many of these corpses were not buried naturally but were ritually placed, often with signs of violent sacrifice, into the acidic mire. This practice suggests a primal, terrifying pact with the earth itself. These sacrifices were often made to ensure good harvest or avert disaster. But demonology reinterprets them as localized offerings to the Leviathan-like entities that rule the chaos of the earth. The victim's body becomes a cursed artifact, an offering meant to appease the dark spirits of the soil and keep the primordial chaos dormant. The preservation of the bodies is the ultimate horrifying paradox. The ritual meant to grant peace to the community resulted in the eternal preservation of the sacrifice's moment of terror. The shadowed eye of the ancient earth is still watching these sacrifices, ensuring that the evidence of humanity's earliest, bloodiest bargains never fades. The Mirror's Curse, Bloody Mary, and the Scrying Ritual. The children's game of invoking Bloody Mary in a darkened room, often through repetition, is a modern survival of an ancient occult practice, demonic scrying. The repeated name and the dark mirror create a focal point for low-level entity attachment, using the vulnerability of childhood fear as an access point. The mirror is the key eerie symbol. In demonology, mirrors are not just reflectors, they are portals, thin points between dimensions. By forcing the mind to concentrate on a dark reflection in a moment of intense fear, the ritual is essentially offering a momentary, consensual spiritual vulnerability to any entity waiting in the interplay of light and darkness. This seemingly harmless game is a whisper of ancient fear that the demonic hierarchy still recruits through childhood trauma. It is an open loop that, once opened, is nearly impossible to close, leaving the participant forever tainted by the fleeting glimpse of the shadow that stared back from the glass. The shadow on the wall, the jinn and the parallel world. Islamic and pre-Islamic folklore details the jinn, intelligent, sentient entities made of smokeless fire who occupy a parallel world to humanity. Unlike traditional demons, the jinn possess free will and can be good, neutral, or violently malicious. Their malicious acts are a localized form of the Goetia demon's chaotic influence. The horror of the jinn lies in their proximity and invisibility. They are believed to occupy the same physical space as humans, in pipes, abandoned homes, and even the dust motes in the air. This proximity means that every inexplicable event, every sudden illness, every moment of temporary insanity can be attributed to their unseen, pervasive interference. The jinn are masters of the open loop by exploiting the human belief in destiny and fate. A person can unknowingly anger a jinn, resulting in a curse or haunting that seems completely unprovoked. This fact confirms that the darkness is not always seeking a pact. Sometimes it merely seeks to enforce its territorial rights in the shared world. The cold embrace, the myling and the unclaimed life. Nordic folklore speaks of the myling, or Utbird, the ghostly spirit of an unbaptized or murdered child, typically seeking revenge on its parent or trying to force a stranger to carry it to a consecrated grave. This is a profound, localized spiritual horror, focusing on the corruption of innocence. The mailing's act of forcing a stranger to carry its small, impossibly heavy body is a physical sensory immersion into dread. The weight is spiritual, a demonic anchor that symbolizes the immense, crushing burden of unabsolved sin. It forces the innocent traveller to physically partake in the final, tragic spiritual journey of a lost soul. This entity is a spiritual agent of the greater hierarchy, focused on the destruction of the family unit and the corruption of the sacred bond. The myling is a terrifying whisper of ancient fear that the darkness uses the most innocent, tragic victims to spread its spiritual infection, turning sympathy into fatal, consuming weight. The Keeper of the Crypt, the Druid and the Demonic Riders. Germanic and Alpine folklore speaks of the Druid, a type of malicious spirit or demon that sits upon the chests of sleepers, causing nightmares and a terrible feeling of pressure, the classic source of sleep paralysis. She is viewed as a minor nightly agent of incubus-like torment. The Druid's nightly visits are not random. They are focused spiritual attacks meant to harvest fear and weaken the psychic defences of the sleeping. Demonologists suggest the Druid is part of a spiritual cavalry, agents who ride the victim, leaving them spiritually exhausted and vulnerable to suggestion upon waking. The shadowed eye of the Druid focuses on the most successful and creative individuals, attempting to crush their spirit during the period of rest. This reinforces the paradox that the demonic hierarchy attacks competence and happiness as much as it does corruption, aiming to bring down those who could potentially lead humanity out of the darkness. The unholy sacrament, the strigoi, and the tainted bloodline Romanian folklore features the strigoi, a terrifying undead creature capable of shape-shifting and drawing life force from the living, acting as a precursor to the modern vampire myth. The chilling fact is that one becomes a strigoi not through a bite, but often by being born to a cursed parent or through a life of extreme sin. This blood-based curse is a powerful foreshadowing of the demonic contract. The sin of the father is literally visited upon the children, ensuring that the dark influence is passed down through bloodlines. The strigoi is a physical, generational cursed artifact, a living testament to the ancestors' dark pact. The interplay of light and darkness is key to the strigoi. They can often walk in daylight, appearing as normal, though highly manipulative and magnetic individuals. They are the epitome of the hidden, corruption, agents who operate in plain sight, ensuring that the darkness is never confined to the night, but permeates all of society. The serpent's egg, the basilisco, and the lethal gaze. Southern European and medieval folklore feared the basilisco, a terrifying serpentine creature said to be hatched from a rooster's egg, incubated by a snake or toad. Its power is instantaneous death by gaze, a chilling, silent form of malice that requires no physical contact, only recognition. The basilisco's gaze is a spiritual manifestation of the shadowed eye of the greater demonic force, a weaponized stare designed to enforce separation and terror. It represents the idea that the demonic hierarchy doesn't always need complex ritual to kill. Sometimes mere attention is enough to cause destruction. The fact that it is born from an unnatural union, rooster and snake toad, is a profound, eerie symbol of perverted nature. The basilisco's creation is a dark form of alchemy, a warning that the most destructive forces are born from the corruption of natural order, always leading back to the serpent's coiled power. The unseen hunter, the chupacabra, and the fear of the unknown. The modern Latin American legend of the chupacabra, a creature that drains the blood of livestock, is often dismissed as mass hysteria. However, in the context of dark folklore, it represents the modern technological customization of an ancient threat. A succulent-like predator adapted for the agricultural age. The creature's terror stems from its utterly alien, changing appearance and its surgical precision. It leaves no trace, creating an open loop that defies scientific explanation and maximizes human helplessness. This is the hierarchy's newest tactic, utilizing creatures that appear too bizarre and too effective to be anything but paranormal. The Chupacabra's existence confirms the whisper of ancient fear that the darkness is evolving. It is a biological agent of the demonic, ensuring that fear is generated not just in the human heart, but in the economy and the food supply, proving the hierarchy seeks to control every aspect of mortal life. The void beyond the abyss. The prison walls. The abyss, or hell, is widely interpreted as the final destination of the damned. However, esoteric texts suggest it is a spiritual quarantine zone, a fortified prison built not to torture the wicked, but to contain the fallen entities, preventing their full, chaotic energy from infecting the entire cosmos. The true horror lies in the existence of something so fundamentally destructive that the demonic hierarchy must be imprisoned to protect reality from it. This presents the paradox that the greatest known evil, the traditional figure of Satan and his legions, is actually serving a dark, unintentional purpose: cosmic stability. The hierarchy is trapped in its own self-made realm, guarding the rest of creation from the central entity's initial, unbridled chaos which is too potent for organized sin. The occasional breaches in the abyss are not escapes, but echoes of something outside the established containment. This is the whisper of ancient fear, that all our religious concepts of hell are based on a defensive structure, and that the true source of primal malice exists beyond the fire, waiting for the defensive walls of reality to finally collapse. The cosmic accountant, the ledger of malice. The most terrifying aspect of the cosmic hierarchy is its cold, absolute order. It functions not on passion or rage, but on cold, impersonal, mathematical principles. It operates like a spiritual accounting firm, meticulously tallying every sin, every broken oath, and every failed act of charity. This implies that the true nature of the central entity is a force of malignant spiritual mathematics, seeking only equilibrium through annihilation. Every act of malice or profanation is tracked as a form of energy conversion. Each soul harvested, each relationship destroyed, is precisely quantified into a usable currency of chaos to fuel the hierarchy's expansion. This makes human suffering less about divine revenge and more about a calculated, terrifyingly efficient spiritual utility. This pervasive bureaucracy is the ultimate shadowed eye, eternally watching and recording. It confirms the recurring motif that the demonic force is utterly patient, waiting for the interest on spiritual debt to accumulate until collection is mathematically inevitable. The final horror is facing a cold, undeniable equation, not a passionate tyrant. The interstellar serpent, the coil around creation. The Ouroboros is believed in some profound esoteric texts to be a living interstellar entity, a cosmic serpent whose impossibly scaled, coiled form encircles entire constellations, not just the Earth. This places the foundation of chaos at a scale far beyond humanity, confirming that all earthly serpents and serpentine symbols are mere distant physical echoes. This cosmic serpent embodies the primordial chaos that existed before the universe's structure was fully formed. Its act of self-consumption is not renewal, but a guarantee that destruction is perpetually recycled. An eternal open loop of entropy that actively undermines creation's integrity and prevents true finality. The eerie symbol of the serpent circle suggests that our solar system may be physically trapped within its coils. This is the whisper of ancient fear that the darkness is not just in the world, but around the world, confining human experience within a vast, silent, destructive interstellar embrace. The god of absolute null, the ultimate oblivion, the ultimate unnamed central entity at the apex of the hierarchy, is not characterized by fire or malice, but by null, the absolute total absence of light, heat, colour, and existence. This concept is far more terrifying than a being of fire and torment, as it seeks to return all creation to a state of perfect, silent non-existence. The demon princes are merely the tools, the heat seekers, whose purpose is to generate enough spiritual negativity, chaos energy, to reverse the work of creation. This is the ultimate paradox. The purpose of all active malice and human suffering is to achieve a final, total, passive spiritual silence. To encounter null is not to feel pain, but to experience the erasure of one's own identity, the sensory immersion into dread, where consciousness ceases, but self-awareness of its own end remains. This is the final horror, the foreshadowing of a cold, infinite, non-existent oblivion. The fallen angel's true motive, the pragmatic betrayal. A chilling interpretation of the angelic fall is that Lucifer and his cohorts saw a future vision, a foreshadowing of the central entity's inevitable triumph over creation. They chose to join the darkness preemptively, believing it was the stronger, ultimately victorious force, making the initial rebellion an act rooted in cynical, spiritual pragmatism, not mere pride or rage. This makes the rebellion the ultimate act of calculated spiritual betrayal. They convinced themselves they were choosing the winning side, thereby corrupting their own divine free will into a tool for the dark. This is the paradox that the greatest evil can be born from the desire for eternal security, regardless of the ethical cost. The fallen angels retain the original corrupted blueprint of creation, which they use to precisely exploit its weaknesses and accelerate its demise. Their goal is not to rule hell, but to manage the dissolution of all things for the null, proving their utility in the final cold reckoning. The earth as a spiritual battery, the ley line harvest. Esoteric demonology views the earth as a massive spiritual power source, whose magnetic energy lines, ley lines, are actively exploited by the demonic hierarchy. Ancient burial sites, cathedrals, and places of tragedy are not randomly chosen. They are powerful nodes where spiritual energy is concentrated and easily tapped by the unseen forces. Humanity's role is to act as a vast collective spiritual battery for this system. Every violent act, every black mass, and every pact creates an energetic discharge that flows back into the ley lines, feeding the central entity's growth. This is the ultimate eerie symbol of human utility. We are merely fuel for the cosmos. This view transforms the entire planet into a cursed artifact, a celestial device designed to harvest spiritual turmoil and fear. This ensures the open loop of human conflict is never closed, as continuous, manufactured suffering is the primary fuel source for the cosmic conspiracy. The noise of the cosmos, the shadowed signal. The true communication method of the cosmic hierarchy is not verbal, but through cosmic noise, a spiritual static that infests human communication channels. This sound is a form of psychic warfare, ensuring that all human systems, radio, thought, and media, are subtly corrupted by doubt and disinformation. This noise is a constant sensory immersion into dread, a low-frequency hum that erodes sanity and encourages paranoia. The whisper of ancient fear is that every moment of doubt, every misheard command, or every electronic glitch is the silent, pervasive influence of the dark force trying to break through the veil of reality. The occasional moments of clarity or sudden genius experienced by occultists are simply the moments when the demon turns the shadowed eye into a shadowed signal, momentarily clearing the noise to deliver a potent, corrupted piece of information, ensuring its continued worship and obedience. The blood-red comet, the temporal key. The blood-red moon is a localized effect. The true cosmic sign is the blood-red comet, a celestial object that traces the path of the central entity and heralds moments of profound cosmic shift. Its appearance marks the completion of a major phase in the hierarchy's long-term plan, a celestial malevolent clock. The comet is a spiritual temporal key. Its proximity to Earth is the one moment when the boundaries of the abyss are weakened enough for high-ranking entities to gain maximum power, or even temporarily bridge the dimensional gap. It is the ultimate foreshadowing of a global collection, and a period of absolute unchecked chaos. In some ancient cultures, meteorites from this comet were treated as cursed artifacts, imbued with the cold energy of the abyss. This celestial object is the ultimate proof that the spiritual war is not local, but a conflict waged across light years, linked to the cold, distant, calculating forces of the void. The final lie of Lucifer, the perfect mask. Lucifer, or Sataniel, acts as the perfect scapegoat, the ultimate interplay of light and darkness. By accepting the title of ultimate evil, with all the fiery drama and spectacle, he convinces humanity they are fighting the highest power, thereby ensuring the true, cold, cosmic threat of the null remains hidden and unopposed. This is the final, grand illusion of the cosmic conspiracy. The figure of the devil with horns, fire and pride is merely a dramatic, eerie symbol, a brilliant mask designed to distract attention from the fact that the entire hierarchy is dedicated to non-existence, not spectacular torment. This deception creates a massive open loop of spiritual misdirection. Humanity wastes its energy fighting a foreshadowing instead of the reality. The final horrifying truth is that the devil we know is merely the PR campaign for the silent, cold oblivion we cannot even conceive. The unmaking of identity, the great erasing. The greatest threat from the null is not physical destruction but spiritual unmaking, the erasure of a soul's identity, memory and unique existence, returning it to the non-differentiated chaos that precedes creation. The harvested soul is not tortured. It is simply recycled, its consciousness violently undone. This is the ultimate violation of human spiritual ambition. The cosmic hierarchy's victory is achieved when it proves that individual existence, the source of all human pride and struggle, is ultimately meaningless and ephemeral. This process creates a continuous, high-grade spiritual energy for the central entity. This concept reinforces the whisper of ancient fear, that the soul is not eternal by right, but a fragile construct that must be continuously fought for. The terror of the abyss is not the fire of rage, but the cold, indifferent act of great erasing, reducing a lifetime of experience to a quiet, final zero. The demonic algorithm, the predictable fall. The central entity does not guess at humanity's actions. It uses a perfect demonic algorithm derived from the original fallen angel's corrupted blueprint. This algorithm allows the hierarchy to precisely calculate the moment, method, and individual who will succumb to temptation, making human free will a statistical illusion. This certainty of corruption is the core of the cosmic conspiracy. The hierarchy views humanity as an inevitable source of spiritual currency, whose resistance is merely a measurable delay. This turns every act of sin into a paradox. The moment a human chooses evil, they are merely fulfilling a cosmic prophecy written in cold mathematics. This omnipresent, calculating force is the ultimate shadowed eye, ensuring that every human action is already accounted for in the ledger of malice. The only true hope for deviation lies in acts of pure, unpredictable, selfless virtue that defy the algorithm's cold logic. The seed of madness, the corrupted inspiration. Many historical acts of atrocity or creative genius tainted by madness, from architects of terrible weapons to writers of blasphemous texts, are attributed to corrupted inspiration. This is the subtle intervention of the cosmic hierarchy, delivering highly advanced knowledge only if it is weaponized against humanity's spiritual or physical structure. The knowledge itself is a cursed artifact, designed to lead the recipient to eventual self-destruction or madness. This is the interplay of light and darkness. The demon offers a spark of divine-level genius, but ensures the recipient's soul is consumed by the resultant inferno of obsession and destructive zeal. This method confirms that the hierarchy is patient enough to invest in long-term human projects, knowing the end result will be chaos. The genius becomes an eerie symbol of betrayal, showing that the greatest human minds are often merely the conduit for the most profound, calculated destruction. The abyssal geography, the cold tunnels. The abyss is not a single location, but a complex non-Euclidean spiritual terrain, connected by vast cold tunnels that ignore the laws of physical space. These tunnels are used by high-ranking demons for near-instantaneous movement across cosmic distances and are rumoured to temporarily intersect with deep earth caverns or ley line nodes. This chilling geography reveals that the hierarchy is functionally omnipresent, limited only by its own internal spiritual physics. The tunnels are the ultimate sensory immersion into dread, where the mind perceives impossible angles and infinite distances, shattering human concepts of travel and reality. The existence of these shortcuts creates an open loop of spiritual insecurity. It confirms that the greatest threats can materialize anywhere, any time, with no warning, proving that the demonic hierarchy is a force unconstrained by the walls of human perception, the unholy silence, the lack of sound in the abyss, while often depicted with screams and fire. The deepest recesses of the abyss, the territory of the null, are characterized by absolute, profound silence. This is the true horror, the absence of sound, the erasure of all vibration, symbolizing the death of all communication, thought, and relational existence. The hierarchy uses this silence as an active spiritual weapon. It is the sensory immersion into non-existence, designed to break the victim's mind by depriving them of the fundamental evidence of their own reality. The silence itself is a form of spiritual pressure that crushes consciousness. This profound lack of sound is a terrible foreshadowing. It reveals the final goal of the cosmic conspiracy, a universe that is perfectly silent, because all life, all consciousness, and all meaningful energy have been consumed by the cold, ultimate oblivion. The demonic archive. The collection of first truths. The cosmic hierarchy maintains a secret archive not of human history, but of first truths, the original uncorrupted blueprints of creation, existence, and the divine plan. This archive is guarded by entities like Paimon, and is the source of all forbidden, corrupted knowledge granted in demonic pacts. This archive is the source of the hierarchy's supreme power. By possessing the uncorrupted knowledge, they know exactly how to twist and subvert it for their own ends, creating the perfect, irrefutable lies. The knowledge is a cursed artifact too dangerous for any mortal to handle. The archive is the shadowed eye of the entire conspiracy. It holds the key to the final battle, but it is locked within the coldest part of the abyss, ensuring that humanity can only ever grasp fragments of corrupted, destructive half-truths. The reverse prophecy, the dark foretelling. The cosmic hierarchy actively engages in reverse prophecy, not predicting the future, but guaranteeing a negative outcome by initiating a chain of events that makes the prophecy self-fulfilling. They tell the mortal what terrible fate will happen, knowing that the fear and anxiety will compel the mortal to accidentally cause the fate to occur. This is the ultimate mastery of the open loop and a perfect demonstration of the demonic algorithm. It weaponizes human free will against itself, ensuring that even attempts to avoid the dark future only accelerate its arrival. The demon is a cold, manipulative director of an inevitable tragedy. This reverse prophecy is the core whisper of ancient fear, the possibility that all human destiny is pre-written by the dark conspiracy. The victim is left with the agonizing paradox that their life was predetermined to serve the needs of the abyss. The echo chamber of lies, the demonic media. In a modern context, the cosmic conspiracy weaponizes information decay, creating an echo chamber of lies where humanity is drowned in personalized, self-reinforcing untruths. This is the modern praxis of Alosis and Zagan, ensuring the collective mind is so fractured that consensus on truth is impossible. This digital warfare is the current phase of the central entity's plan to enforce chaos. By destroying the shared reality, the hierarchy ensures spiritual isolation and paranoia, a perfect state of vulnerability for mass spiritual harvest. The media itself becomes the modern cursed artifact. This is the most subtle, pervasive form of sensory immersion into dread, the constant, low-grade anxiety of never knowing what is real. The hierarchy proves that the most effective way to destroy society is not through fire and brimstone, but through the quiet, constant corrosion of trust. The unclaimed relic, the demonic footprint. In the rare event a summoned demon is successfully trapped or destroyed, its spiritual remnants, a piece of crystallized malice or a fragment of its seal, may be left behind. These unclaimed relics are the most dangerous cursed artifacts, imbued with raw, uncontrolled chaos energy. These remnants are unstable. They can attract and empower other entities, or spontaneously infect the environment, causing localized possession residue and spiritual decay. They are physical proof that the spiritual war is real, yet their very existence poses a continuous, unpredictable threat. The existence of these footprints reinforces the foreshadowing that the hierarchy is a physical force. The demon's body leaves behind the ultimate eerie symbol, an object that testifies to its existence, but which no human or spiritual power can safely destroy. The perpetual loop, the cosmic recursion. The deepest, most esoteric lore suggests that the conflict between light and darkness is not a linear war with a beginning and end, but a perpetual loop, a cosmic recursion where creation is formed, corrupted and destroyed in an endless cycle. The demonic hierarchy's goal is not final victory, but the maintenance of this destructive cycle. This is the ultimate open loop of existential dread. Every great civilization, every rise and fall of faith is merely a repeat performance. The central entity's ultimate goal is to prove that free will is meaningless because the outcome is always the same: corruption and collapse. This recursion is the final agonizing truth revealed by the shadowed eye. Humanity's history is merely a single track on an infinite dark record, ensuring that every victory is temporary and every defeat is eternally repeated. The unnamed fear, the dread beyond language. The true nature of the central entity is utterly unnamed. It is a philosophical horror that exists in a state beyond human comprehension, linguistic description, or sensory input. All names given, Satan, Lucifer, Null, are merely rough human approximations of a force that is pure, cold, and absolute cosmic negation. This ultimate namelessness is the final whisper of ancient fear. It ensures that humanity can never truly define, understand, or defeat the source of all malice, because to name it would be to give it limits that it does not possess. The dark force operates on a principle of total, incomprehensible freedom. This eerie symbol of the unnamed void is the true paradox of the war. Humanity must fight an enemy it cannot see, touch, or name, making every spiritual battle a struggle against the very limits of its own consciousness. The corruption of the future, the pre-tainted soul. The cosmic hierarchy, utilizing its demonic algorithm and temporal knowledge, can send a subtle, energetic taint backward in time. This pre-tainted soul is born into the world with a spiritual weakness already in place, making it susceptible to specific sins, possession, or dark influence later in life. This ability to corrupt the past is the ultimate act of cosmic conspiracy. It means that the outcome of a soul's life is decided before its birth, further eroding the concept of free will. The entity wins the war on the soul decades before the person is even old enough to choose. This final, temporal violation is the ultimate foreshadowing. It reveals that the most terrifying form of the cursed artifact is not an object, but a human life, intentionally flawed from the start to serve the relentless cold mathematics of the abyss. the unflinching logic, the law of spiritual entropy. The single, universal law that governs the cosmic hierarchy is the law of spiritual entropy. It is the unbreakable principle that all created things, stars, species, and souls, must naturally decay, dissipate, and return their energy to the pre-creation void. The demonic hierarchy is simply the active enforcement mechanism for this law. This means the spiritual war is unwinnable, as the demonic hierarchy is essentially fighting with the fundamental forces of the universe. This is the final central question. Is the darkness an external evil, or is it the cold, inevitable truth of reality itself? This cosmic conclusion ensures that the recurring motif of corruption is not a choice, but a cosmic inevitability. The demonic force is not a passionate choice for evil. It is the cold, unflinching logic of the universe demanding its final, terrifying due. The return of the king, the final seal on the earth. The final high-ranking entity is the one tasked with announcing the central entity's final move, a figure often prophesied to arrive not in fire, but in political and spiritual triumph, seemingly ushering in an era of flawless false peace. This is the final eye of Lucifer made manifest, the perfect human vessel for the highest cosmic power. This final agent will utilize the accumulated chaos energy from the ley line harvest to establish a global order so efficient and alluring that humanity will willingly surrender the last vestiges of its spiritual autonomy. This false utopia is the ultimate interplay of light and darkness, ensuring the collection of souls occurs under the guise of salvation. The final act of the king is the ritualistic placement of the final seal, an immensely powerful, eerie symbol derived from the first truths on a major global spiritual node. This act closes the open loop of creation, guaranteeing the permanent spiritual capture of the earth and the subsequent great erasing. Fact 99. The harvest of silence, the end of free will. The moment the final seal is set, the demonic algorithm achieves its final perfect calculation, the complete nullification of human free will. Every remaining soul, whether saved or damned, is processed through the ledger of malice, and all spiritual debt is immediately collected, leading to the harvest of silence. This is the ultimate sensory immersion into dread. A period of absolute, terrifying, unholy silence descends upon the earth, where no prayer can be heard, no thought can be formed, and no light can be found. The atmosphere itself is crushed by the pressure of the null's total presence. The final terror is the realization that the cosmic recursion has been permanently altered. The cycle of creation is not allowed to restart. The central entity has achieved its singular goal of non-existence, transforming the entire planet into a vast, cold, spiritual void to be consumed in the final act of great erasing. The remaining whisper, the single open loop. Despite the finality of the great erasing, a single, faint, open loop is left in the structure of the void, the spiritual echo of an unanswered question, a memory so small and pure that the demonic algorithm failed to detect it. This final whisper of truth is the only remnant of the light, perpetually recurring in the emptiness. This final whisper is the recurring motif of hope, hidden within the cosmic recursion. It is a single, solitary proof that the central question, whether the spiritual realm is purely defined by evil, has a chance to be answered in the affirmative, one final time in the next cycle of creation. The horrifying implication is that the spiritual war must be fought again, but the victory will be different. The unflinching logic is temporarily foiled by the tiniest flaw in its own perfection. The final countdown ends not in oblivion, but in the certainty that the darkness will return and the endless watch must begin anew. The great lie. We have journeyed through the hierarchy, from the petty demons who haunt your sleep to the cold mathematical entities that govern cosmic decay. But the deepest dread is this: Everything you have witnessed, the fire, the pacts, the screaming terror, is nothing more than a magnificent distraction, a glorious crimson-stained opera designed to keep your eyes off the true horror. Tonight, we step beyond hell itself. We look past the flamboyant mask of the devil and into the cold, silent void. We will confront the central question: is the ultimate evil truly a passionate tyrant, or is it merely the unflinching logic of the universe demanding the absolute silence of oblivion? This is the final layer of the cosmic conspiracy, and once you see the shadowed eye of the null, you will realize that the only horror more terrifying than a monster is a machine. The harvest of silence is not an event we wait for. It is a process that is always underway. The demonic algorithm continues its relentless calculation, ensuring that every soul is pre-tainted and every cycle ends in cosmic recursion. The terrifying finality is that the universe is rigged, and the law of spiritual entropy governs all. Yet, a single, infinitesimal open loop remains, the memory of a pure thought, the remaining whisper that always manages to slip through the cold, absolute finality of the great erasing. It is this flaw in the machine's perfection that gives us the only thing the darkness cannot account for: unpredictable, free-willed defiance. To understand the whispers and fight the silence, you must know the code. If you dare to look into the abyss again, like and subscribe to Track the Blood Red Comet, and decipher the next set of first truths hidden in the noise.